Welcome everyone to BoomerWorks. We are excited to have you here for our presentation on our second presentation on networking. And it's called From Accidents to Allies, Your Hidden in Plain Sight Network. And I'm delighted to introduce my colleague, Vern Schellinger. Vern and I are going to be tag teaming tonight. Vern's going to take the first half. I'm going to take the second half because we each have a unique model around how to really think about your existing network in a different way. And hopefully these models will be very, very helpful to you. I am a career coach and a small business coach and a recruiter. So I see things from kind of all sides of the hiring aisle. And I'm really been a consummate networker my whole life. And Vern is certified with an organization called Contacts Count, which exclusively focuses on networking. So he is a master networker. And so we thought that tag teaming today would really be very helpful. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and give the remote here over to Vern. Actually, Vern, you should already have it. So feel free to kick things off.
Okay, thanks so much, Shira.
Oh, actually, Vern, before you get going, I'm so sorry. Yep. I meant to do one more thing. Yep. So for everybody, if you haven't already seen it, there is the recording. This is the second session of our summer series on networking and business development. And last time, about a month ago, Vern did actually a presentation, and I want to share that with you all in the chat box. But for those of you who are watching online, just simply go to boomerworks.org, go to our training center tab, go down to marketing your business, and the second video down will have this recording. Okay, so hopefully that helps. So Vern, take it away.
Okay, and what Shira just referenced last month, we talked about the elevator pitch that's critical to your business, for you to communicate your brand, to build your business, and how your elevator pitch can get transformed into stories. The way I think about it is your elevator pitch is again, you're communicating to other people what you do, how you do it, and the value you bring to your potential customers or clients in doing what you do. Stories are a complement to your elevator pitch in the sense that they give a vivid example of an actual experience you had doing what you're doing what you do, and satisfying your client, solving their problems. Today, and whenever you're giving your elevator pitch or telling a story, you're obviously in a conversation. And so today we're going to take a deep dive into conversations, all of the different types of conversations you can have with anyone, any place, anywhere. As we do that, we're going to be talking about the skills and behaviors of networking. And a lot of this comes from, again, as Shira indicated, the work I do with Contacts Count. And so to begin, I'd like you to at least give me a little sense of how you think and feel about networking. So we're going to put up a quick poll here, and there's just simply 4 statements, and you select the statement that you think best identifies where you're at with networking today.
Laura, welcome. We are actually about to launch a poll, just so you know. It has to do with how you feel about networking. Michael, do you want to go ahead and launch the poll for us? Okay.
The poll is anonymous. We have 60% so far have completed the poll.
There should be one more person. All right. So let's go ahead and click. Oh, there we go.
There's the fourth one. We're good.
Yeah,
okay.
We're good. You can end the poll.
Okay, we're going to close the poll. And we are going to share the results.
All right. Well, I guess I don't have to address anyone who was in the A and B category, which is great. The work that we do at Contacts Count, I'll mention this briefly, is people that would select A and B on this type of a poll. One of the critical reasons why they're at the place they're at with networking is simply because they don't know how to network. They're not sure what to say, when to say it, how to say it. And we've proven at Contacts Count that the 8 competencies we've developed for networking, we can teach anybody to network. Now, for those of you that said C&D, which is all of you in this group, great, you're on your way to success. And it's obviously a critical skill as a business person, as an entrepreneur, to be able to communicate your expertise, to be able to build relationships with people. I'd ask you to think about continuous improvement, and some of what Shira and I will share with you today may give you a new insight or a new technique that will enhance what you're already doing. So that's great. Michael, you can kind of close the poll at this point.
Should be closed. So Vern, you're welcome to keep going.
Okay. Have I got the,
You should have the remote.
I should have, but
Oh, wait, let me make sure you, okay, you should have it now.
okay, I should have it now.
Mhm.
So, hold on just a second and get rid of this. What you see on the screen now is a definition of networking that we put together at Contacts Count. And I'd like you to take a moment and read the definition. And if anything sticks out at you, a phrase, a keyword, or if you have a question about this, just put it in the chat.
Or since
Anything?
we have a small group tonight, you can also raise your hand or shout it out. Networking is deliberate. Deliberate is a great word. Yeah.
Well, and if there's no questions or no raised hands, again, as Shira said, I mean, the 2 or 3 key things here are, it is a deliberate process. And for those of you that obviously are all pretty good at networking and believe in networking, you know, it takes time, it takes effort, it needs to be thought about and done on a regular basis. And whenever you are networking and having a conversation, there's always an exchange of something: information, resources, support, with the ultimate goal of creating a mutually beneficial relationship. Now, we all have lots of conversations with lots of people all day long, and not all of those conversations are going to lead to a mutually beneficial relationship. But the more that you know about networking, the more experienced you are, the more savvy you are about networking, the greater likelihood that more of those conversations will, in fact, lead to a mutually beneficial relationship if it's done in the right way. I don't expect you to leave the session today with this memorized. However, I do expect you to leave the session with what I'm going to say now memorized. This is a much shorter definition of networking, but it is something you can remember easily and think about all of the time. So if you've got ready with a pen and paper in hand, it's 2 short sentences. Networking is not about talking and taking. Networking is not about talking and taking. Networking is about teaching and giving. Networking is about teaching and giving. I encourage you to write that down. I encourage you to put it as a note in your smartphone, put it on a 3x5 card, put it somewhere where you see that and it becomes part of the way you simply think about networking. Whenever you're approaching a conversation or having a conversation, what can I teach this other person about who I am, and what can I learn about them to be able to give back to them? Because networking is not manipulative, one-sided. It's not only for extroverts. It's not for just job hunters or sales professionals. And it's certainly not optional in today's workplace. everything that pretty much is done in today's world is there's some level of collaboration, and the better your relationship with the people that you're working with, the greater the collaboration. So again, it's about teaching people what you're good at and interested in, and learning those same things about them. Now, again, as business owners and entrepreneurs, obviously a lot of what you want to teach people is your elevator pitch. You want to be able to tell stories and teach people about what you do and how successfully you do it. But again, it can't be a one-way street. You've got to be also prepared to think about, what questions can I ask this person? How do I learn about them? And learn as much as I can about them to be able to possibly give back or help them in some way. Networking is lots of learned behaviors. Again, each one of our 8 competencies has a number of skills, behaviors, tools, and strategies that help people get better at each element of the whole networking process, from the way you think about network to all the way to adding value to the organization or creating greater value within your network or the other people that you're involved with. And again, a fallacy for most people when they think about networking, they think about networking events, and really it's everything you do to build relationships. It's almost every conversation you have. And the fact of the matter is, master networkers probably spend maybe 10%, maybe 20% of their time at networking events, but most of those conversations are one-on-one conversations. The logic's pretty simple. The more I teach you about who I am, what I'm all about, what my goals are, what my aspirations are, the greater likelihood you can help me. And again, conversely, the more I learn about you, the greater I can help you. Obviously, in your conversations with people, one of the things that you're looking to learn about them when possible is, what are their problems? What are their issues? And do their problems or issues potentially match up with the products and services you offer as a business person? And then obviously that can segue into a more a deeper conversation about how you might actually help them. That might be a great time to tell them a story about how you've helped another client doing something very similar to what they're experiencing right now. Networking relation. Whoop. How do I go back? Sure.
It's okay.
You get it back?
There you go.
There we go. So networking relationships are really all around you. And as you'll see, there's plenty of opportunities for each of us to build relationships every day. And one of the important things about becoming, again, really good at networking is actually being prepared for the conversations, thinking ahead before you're actually in a conversation, almost like if you were planning an agenda for a meeting. It's not maybe as in-depth or as formal as planning an agenda for a meeting, but thinking about the conversations you're about to have. Who will I be meeting with? Who will be at this meeting, at this networking event? Or who is the person I am meeting with? And obviously, the better prepared you are, that can inform the questions you may ask them. It may inform you in terms of exactly what you say in terms of your elevator pitch or the possible stories you communicate with them. And the next slide that I'm going to share with you is a slide that talks about the trust building process, and it identifies the type of conversation that you can have with anyone, anywhere, any place. What's that, Michael?
Can you hear everybody here, Vern? We're good? Okay, Vern, you can keep going.
Okay, all right. So here are the 6 stages of building trust with anyone, anywhere, anytime. So the first type of conversation you can have is what we call an accident. We've all had accidental conversations in our life. One simple example is you've been on a flight from Washington, D.C. to Chicago and sat next to a person for, an hour and a half or 2 hours, whatever it is, and one of you initiated a conversation. You get off the plane, you go your separate ways, and that random event will never amount to anything because neither one of you got any contact information from one another. Another common place where an accident may occur is you're standing at a long, long line and, you start up a conversation with someone. Most accidents, again, don't lead anywhere. There is the rare instance where you have an accidental conversation and one of you does take the initiative to get a name, a number, an email, and you follow up and actually can build a relationship from that point on. Anybody think of an accident that they may have had recently or 6 months ago? You may not, because again, these are such random events.
So for the ladies in the room, this is what happens in the long line waiting to go to the restroom.
Okay, great example. Yeah,
right. We've made best friends for like 5 minutes and then off we go.
Yeah. So there's these different situations in our life where those happen. So now, if it was, let's suppose that was at a networking event, and Heather, you had that conversation, best friends for 5 minutes. But then the next month you went to the same networking event and you bumped into that person again, right? Then who knows where that conversation could go from that point. The second type of conversation we have is with an acquaintance. And the definition here is simply you and the acquaintance have some common contact. You have someone that it's an acquaintance you've met somewhere, but you have a common contact, and you can get your common contact, if you wanted to reach out to that acquaintance again, can certainly make a warm introduction for you. You could have met somebody at a family wedding and had this great conversation about some topic, and 2 or 3 weeks later, you have a real reason to learn more about that topic, and you remember this person from the wedding. Well, you call your brother, your sister, you call whoever in the family who knows that person, and you'd be reconnected with them. And again, with a warm introduction, it's pretty easy to have that second conversation. The largest number of relationships that are possible for you, when we say relationships are everywhere, is the collection of people that we call associates. And I can almost guarantee you that as I give you this definition, and if you sat down and started to list the number of people that are an associate in your world, you'd literally come up with thousands of people. Because the definition is someone you have something in common with. So these are all the people you went to high school with. These are all the people you attended college with. These are all the people you currently work with. These are all the people who you formerly worked with at some point. These are all of the people who are at the PTA meetings that you might belong to, the members of your gym, your place of worship, volunteer work that you do. There's so many different groups that in our lives we belong to one way or the other, where there's someone that we have this common bond with. So while there might be 1,000 people in your group of associates, the fact of the matter is obviously you haven't had a conversation with all of 1,000 people. The key thing to remember here is you easily have permission to start a conversation with anybody who is your associate. An example might be if you were working in an organization and you were in a particular, let's suppose you're in the marketing function and finance announced this huge, new initiative, and you were interested in that, you could literally go to someone in the finance department that maybe you've never spoken to, introduce yourself, say, hey, I'm with the marketing department. I heard about this project. Would you spend a little bit of time and tell me more about it? And I'm sure they would. As a business owner or as an entrepreneur, think about all of the people that are in your associate world and they're all potential conversations for you to communicate, again, what you're doing, who you are as an entrepreneur, your elevator pitch, and again, build your brand. And it's networking is your best free way to market your services and products to the whole world. The active stage is obviously, this is when you're actually having the conversation. This is where the exchange is taking place, information, support, resources, whatever. So whether it's an accident and an acquaintance or an associate, at some point you're having an active conversation. And when we're in the active stage of having a conversation with someone, they are looking for two things from you, and you are looking for two things from them. We're both looking for some indication, some evidence of each other's character and competence. And I'm sure that you've had experiences in your life where you've started a conversation with someone, and within a minute or two, you've either said, wow, I'm really connecting with this person, or I'm really not connecting with this person. So the active stage is where we begin, actually, the trust building process really begins there as we're trying to, like I said, find evidence of person's character competence. The character, are they trustworthy? Are they dependable? Now, you won't really be able to identify that in the first conversation, but it's the second, the third, the fourth conversation. And what contacts count research shows is that after 6 to 10 to 12 conversations, if you've experienced the character and competence from one another, you may actually become one another's advocates. And as you can see here on the slide, these are people who send opportunities your way. They speak up for you. They speak about you when you're not in the room. They believe in your character and competence. They are an extension of your business in terms of marketing your business to other people. And there's really two things about advocates that you need to think about. The first is, how many advocates would you like to have in your network? And my answer to that is as many as possible. And then the second question is, how many advocates do you actually have in your network today? And in a little bit, we're going to give you an exercise where you can actually determine, you can pick someone out who you believe is your advocate and either confirm that that person is your advocate, or maybe there's a little bit more work you need to do to ensure that that person is your advocate. And then last but not least are your allies. And this is a small group of people who are going through your life with you. At Contacts Count, we call these folks kind of your personal board of directors. Your allies can be almost anyone who knows you and knows you so well, and you know them so well. These are the type of people where you share some of your personal information. These are the people that you call when you have a real problem. These are the people who celebrate your successes with you. These are the people who are going through your life. It wouldn't matter if they were on the other side of the world. You know, you could pick up the phone at any time, call them, and they would answer it. And they, how are you? What's going on? And vice versa. Obviously, as allies, you would do the same thing for them. Your allies could be a sibling. It could be a former boss. It could be a mentor. It could be a college roommate. They come from very, very different parts of the world. But again, as I said, it's usually a small group, kind of your personal board of directors as you're going through your lives. Now, notice as you move from accidents to allies, the level of risk in the conversation decreases dramatically. You certainly wouldn't share personal information with an accident or an acquaintance or that type of thing, but the level of risk decreases as you get to the level of advocates or allies, and the level of trust, just the opposite, increases. You have absolute trust and confidence in your allies. So let me stop there and ask if there's any questions about anything in terms of those 6 stages before we talk about the dormant people in your world. We're good to go?
Good to go.
Okay. So notice the slice of the pie there that talks about dormant relationships. Your allies will never be dormant. As I just said, they are there for you always throughout your lifetime. But every one of your other relationships can change. Networks are dynamic. You move from one location to another. You take a different job. Someone in your network moves away. They take a different job. And so your networks, like I said, are dynamic. There's people coming into your network and people leaving your network. For the time that I spent in Washington, D.C., I had a lot of advocates back in 2010, 2011, 2012. Moved to Florida in 2014, and some of those people are no longer my advocates. And I can't advocate for them either because we haven't really been in touch that much. Now, that hasn't happened with all of my advocates. There's still people from Washington, D.C. who are an advocate, and I can advocate for them. But that's an example, and you know this in your own life. People come in and come out of your life as you go through it. But don't underestimate the power of reaching out to people who you have what we call a dormant relationship with. If they've experienced your character and competence and you experienced their character and competence and you like this person and you knew they were trustworthy and you knew their expertise and they were conscientious and thoughtful and all of the things that describe character and competence within a person, and you had that type of relationship, it is so easy to pick up the phone, and whether it's been 6 months, 3 years, 5 years, reach out, say, hey, it's been a long time.
Or 25
since
years.
We've chatted.
Or 25 years,
I've
truly.
just called to see how you're doing and how have you been?
Yeah.
And 99.9% of the time, you're going to have a really positive conversation with that person.
They're called blast from the past relationships.
Am I back?
You're back.
Okay. As an example of what I'm saying, Shira and I probably met each other sometime in the early 2000s. Would you agree, Shira?
Something like that. Yep.
Something like that. We were both members of the Human Resource Leadership Forum. And at the time that we met, I would have considered us probably associates. I mean, we weren't real close, but I knew Shira. I knew what she did. She knew, I was in HR and who I was working for and that type of thing. Again, I left DC in 2014, and Shira and I probably hadn't talked for at least 5 or 6 or 7 years. And one of the people that was in her Higher Moment Mastermind group was a client of mine, and said, Vern, one of the people on Shira's expert panel, is leaving. You might be a great, replacement, and why don't you reach out? And so I did. And that was 8 months ago, Shira? Mm-hmm. And Shira and I now, we talk on a weekly basis. Mm-hmm. So that whole relationship has been rejuvenated and probably stronger than it was when we first met, because Absolutely. We've gotten to know more and more about what each other does. And so I think it's fair to say Shira and I are now advocates of
Absolutely.
one another. Yeah. So like I said, the dormant relationships in your life can be very, very powerful. So don't, and again, as you're trying to build your business, think about people from your past who might be someone that might be able to help you. The other thing about dormant relationships is they've traveled different paths. They've learned different things. They have new people in their network that you're not even aware of. So the possibilities are endless when you start to reach out to your dormant relationships. So with that, advocates are the type of people that you really want in your network. The more, the better. And so we've got an exercise here that allows you to pick out a single person, someone who you believe is an advocate in your network right now. And this worksheet is very simple, 15 statements, and you read the statement and you answer yes or no. And after you've each done that, I'll kind of give you kind of the scorecard for the rate your relationship exercise here. But it's really important that when you read the statement and you say yes, it's a definite yes. If you read a statement and it, you know, for example, one of the statements, this person can give in specific details one of my key accomplishments or something like that. If you, I think they can, but I'm not sure, then just put down no, because that's really where you're at with that particular statement. So go through this pretty quickly and come up with either, and then at the end of it, tally up your yeses and we'll talk about a scorecard.
So for those of you who are participating live, that worksheet was put in the chat box. For those of you who are watching this on the recording, we will have this as a downloadable on the same page as this video is going to be on our BoomerWorks site. So go ahead and take 3 minutes and we'll let you know when that time's up. Okay, Vern, feel free to have
Okay.
do your call outs.
All right, so as you've completed that worksheet and you've tallied up the yeses, when we do workshops with individuals, we just typically ask them to put the name of a person in there. So sometimes they just pick a name. And obviously, if you only can answer a few yeses, if it's like 1 to 5 yeses, it's probably someone who may be your associate. Obviously, you need to get somewhere between 6 and 10 or more for someone who's an advocate, and an ally. You probably ought to be able to answer almost every single one of these with a yes. And so this is a a great way to kind of gauge, how strong of a relationship I have with this person. And the other way to use this is if you thought this person was your advocate and you maybe only had 7 or 8, the ones that were no's, it informs you, I need to teach this person more about XYZ so that I can turn this no into a yes. It kind of gives you a roadmap to follow to build that relationship to the strength that the person really is your advocate. So I'll leave it there unless there's any questions, comments.
All right.
Okay.
Heather, did you have a comment?
I did. So I went through it fairly quickly, which I think is indicative of the strength of the relationship. Like I really didn't have to work at each one. And then I went back through and I asked myself the same questions for as am I an advocate for that person? And I was quite proud to say that we were both very strong on like the number of yeses I came up with in both directions. I was very proud of that.
Excellent. That's a good point to make, that, if, in fact, as we described advocates, it's got to be a two-way street. It's teaching and giving, right? So it can't be this person's my advocate, but I don't give anything back to them. You've got to be able to do the same thing for them. So thanks so much, Heather, for that. Yeah. All right. So I've talked about conversations that you have pretty much with anyone, any place, anytime. And some of these and the skills of networking you use in all of your conversations. Shira is now going to take a deeper dive and talk about specific situations with specific people, primarily your advocates and your allies, people and how, depending on the type of relationship you have with them, how do you approach that? What do you say? And what you say is different to different people based on the strength of the relationship or the nature of the relationship.
Great. Well, thanks, Vern. So just to kind of back into that whole conversation, how Vern has his his A's, right? Advocates to allies, or accidents to allies, rather. Well, I actually have a slightly different way of looking at your network that based upon the people that you actually know. So there are no accidents in this one. These are all people that you know. And we're going to categorize them into 2 different groups, right? So these are people who know you, like you, and trust you to varying degrees. And secondarily, people who actually get what your business is, okay? Or even do what you do in terms of a business. And the reason why I call it a family network is because it's going to actually have the same nomenclature. So we've got twins, siblings, first cousins, and second cousins. So there are 2 categories here, right? So this first one is going to be the people who know you, right? Know you, like you, and trust you. So when I consider a twin, and this is what Vern would call an advocate or an ally, actually. I think he calls it more of an ally. And that is people who know you, what I call know you by voice, right? Same kind of thing. Family, best friend, they celebrate with you, as Vern said, they'll dance at your wedding, they'll help you move, okay? Those people. Siblings are people who know you by first name, right? Really close colleague, hey, it's Shira, hey, it's Vern, right? And they know exactly who you are, regardless of, caller ID, they know you by name, right? A first cousin is this past relationship. This is what Vern was talking about in terms of the dormancy. Past relationship is somebody, like I said, who's a very warm connection. It could be 5 years ago. It could be 25 years ago. It's the blast from the past. It's the, wow, it's been forever. How you doing? Kind of a thing. As opposed to a second cousin is a past acquaintance who's friendly, but not close. So this is the person who you haven't seen in a very long time. They're probably not even going to remember you. So you're gonna have to remind them. The way that kind of sounds is, right? A twin would be like, hey, it's me. You don't have to say your name, right? A sibling is, hi, it's Shira, okay? Close colleague. First cousin, hi, John, it's Shira Lotz, our first name, last name. Long time no see, blast from the past, right? Or in my case, I got married a couple of years ago. So I used to be Harrington, now I'm Lotz. I have to explain that to people. But the second cousin is, hello, John, formal, right? It's Shira Lotzar. We met at the conference. Okay, so that's kind of how it's framed. So that's one category of people. Now here's a second category. These are people who understand your business. And I still have the same concept of the family tree. So here's how it works. A twin. Twins do what you do. In yesteryear, we would call them competitors. No, we don't call them competitors anymore. We call them competimates. We talk about co-opetition, okay? We are in a giver world these days. We all know this. Nobody wants slick oil in your hair, right? Nobody wants, zero-sum game and it's all about winning and losing. No. We are in a collaborative, thankfully, we are in a collaborative society now, right? So even if there's somebody who does exactly what you do, you can still partner with them potentially, refer overflow projects. They have an expertise you don't, and vice versa. You bring each other in. It's all good. Maybe you have a client that's not the right fit for you, right fit for somebody else. You never know, okay? Those are wonderful people to network with, to have close. Vern and I overlap. So I have multiple practice areas. I call it multiple lanes in my highway. I'm a recruiter and a career coach, a small business coach. I do executive coaching and all these different things. Vern does a lot of career coaching. So in that regard, we are competimates. But we can share ideas. In fact, we share them every single week. I run this group that Vern mentioned. It's a free group for job seekers called Higher Moment Mastermind. Every single week, we're sitting there and talking about best practice. Okay, what's going on with our clients and case studies, right? We're sharing ideas and information, and we could potentially refer business to each other if we needed to. Okay, the sibling is somebody who markets to the same customer, right? But provides a complementary service. They don't do what you do, they're a complement to what you do. And I'm going to give you some examples on the next slide, but I want you to be thinking about that, right? So Laura and I haven't, this is funny. So Laura and I haven't seen each other in a long time. Laura and I have been associates because we were also in the HR world together. And I know Laura has multiple lanes in her highways too. I think she and I overlap a little bit on recruiting, but I think there's other things that she does that I don't do and I don't do that she does and all of that. So potentially, right, Laura, maybe we should have a networking call after this, to kind of explore and see, right, what's going on in our respective worlds, so that we can, figure out where there's some areas of commonality. Okay, but it's a really, really good source for referred business. This is really where you want to focus, because you are close enough. You market to the same customer, but what you don't do the same thing. A first cousin, okay? So this is somebody who markets to the same customer, but provides a pretty unrelated service, okay? And so they might hear about referred business, not particularly likely, but it's possible. So you never know, but I just want you to be aware that there are those people out there too. And then finally, the second cousin markets to the same customer, provides a very unrelated service, which means they're very unlikely to hear about referred business. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you in this way is because this has to do with how you prioritize your networking, okay? So it might be that you have somebody on the other family network tree who's like maybe a sibling relationally, but they don't really do what you do. They'll love to help you, but they're not necessarily able to, because they really are not in your space, unless once in a while. So let's take Francine, who's on the call right now, okay? And I mentioned before we started this call, there's actually a connection point. So Francine and I have been good friends for a long time. Haven't seen each, we're not talking all the time, but we definitely have a good connection. And Francine does something that she's retired now, but she does something very different than what I do. However, today I actually have a need. I have a need because I'm doing a search assignment. I have a need to find somebody who actually I think might be in her network. Okay, that would not normally happen, but here's somebody who, as I would probably call Francine, maybe a sibling, right, of sorts relationally, but she's very much a second cousin, maybe even a third cousin in terms of what we do in business, except for this one time. Okay, so that can happen, but in terms of how you prioritize your network, always go after your siblings and even your twins. as much as possible, because those are the people who are going to be able to refer you the best business. Okay. So here are some, examples of that, right? So I'm going to take myself. I'm going to take one of my lanes, which is the career coaching. So career coach, right? Another career coach is obviously my twin. A sibling for me would be an executive coach. Now, I do happen to do executive coaching, but I don't market myself intensely that way. There are people out there who only do executive coaching and they don't do career coaching. Why is that person a sibling for me? Because they actually market to a very similar customer. They are dealing with people who are, in my case, mid to senior level executives, right? Leadership coaching, executive coaching. Now, it is very likely in the course of that coaching conversation that individual might say, hey, I want to make a career transition. It is also very likely that executive coach will say, great, I don't do resumes and LinkedIn profiles. Shira does, okay? And then refer them, and that has happened to me over the years. I can't tell you how many times. I've had some very specific relationships with executive coaches where I'm their go-to girl. That's it, right? I just know when I hear that a referral from that person, it's just like a golden goose, because I'm the person that they trust to send people to do what they don't do. Okay. Those are, again, really, really great relationships to have. For me, a life coach or a therapist would be a first cousin. So sure, a life coach or a therapist, they might be working with a mid to senior level professional. Absolutely. But the chances of that person actually getting into somebody's job search, I mean, they might, because life coaches deal with all kinds of areas of a person's life, but it's not quite as likely as an executive coach. Okay. And finally, I would say a financial planner, right? A financial planner is probably also dealing with a mid to senior level person, but they're talking about money. They're not necessarily talking about career changing. Again, it might happen, but really, really unlikely. So in terms of my priorities, I'm going to be more likely to network with executive coaches, maybe even career coaches, than I would the life coach or the financial planner. All right. So now let's get a little bit into elevator pitches. So when you're talking about elevator pitches, you want to be thinking about this. The more somebody gets what you do, the more specific, dare I say, jargony that you can be when you are engaging with in a conversation. The less they get you, the more generic you need to be. So in other words, you're going to be the people who get what you do, they get the challenges that you solve. They speak the same language. They breathe the same air. When you're talking to them, you don't have to worry about, mincing your words or dumbing things down, right? Or being very generic. You can actually have a conversation. Vern and I can talk about, career situations, and we get it. Interviewing and all these resumes and all these things, we have a fluid conversation. But if I'm talking to somebody who really doesn't get what I do, I'd have to really backtrack and make sure that I'm explaining it in a way they can hear. So I'll give you another example. So sample pitch. So we'll put the career coach thing aside. Let's pretend that I am an HR consultant and I'm networking with another HR consultant. Okay. So I might use some jargon and very freely. I help HR leaders boost their employee engagement metrics by designing culture building programs. I mean, I don't do that personally, but let's just say I did, right? That's very jargony. That's something that an HR consultant they would totally get. They know what employee engagement means. They know what culture building programs are. It's very sort of nomenclature to them. A first cousin, okay, I'm the HR consultant, but I'm networking now with a CFO consultant. Why is a CFO consultant my first cousin? Because that person markets to the same kind of a person that I do, same kind of business, let's say, but they provide financial services. So they're not in the HR space. I mean, they have familiarity, but they're not living and breathing it like another HR person. So I would be more generic. I help HR leaders create great places to work by designing programs that improve their corporate culture. Very easy peasy, okay? And you actually go down the family tree like that. Somebody who didn't know this at all, I would have to sanitize it even more than that to make sure that the person that I'm talking to really understands what I'm saying. It's very, very important. And I'm mentioning this to all of you because oftentimes when we have our elevator pitch, it's static, right? We memorized it. It's one note. We prepped it. We planned it. It's all scripted out. And yet we forget to customize because you've got to speak in a way that your audience can hear. It is communication 101. So be thinking about when you have your pitch, how can you turn it this way? How can you rephrase it that way? If you're talking to somebody who gets you or somebody who doesn't, all of those things matter. Okay. So what I want to do right now is I want to actually give you an opportunity to do this with each other. So I'd like you to think about either a twin or first cousin in terms of somebody who gets what you do, not the relational one, the get what you do, does what you do, knows what you do, or it can be an advocate or an ally, which is pretty much the same thing. And what I want you to do is I want you to think about your elevator pitch and how you can tailor it to each one. Okay. So just take two different people and you have your elevator pitch to one is going to somebody who gets what you do and somebody who maybe gets what you do a little bit less. Okay. How can you tailor it? So what we'll do here is we've got actually the three of you, Heather, Francine, and Leanne. All right. So you know what? Let's just stay in the room. I was actually going to do breakout rooms if we had another person. But let's go ahead and just take a few minutes, okay, and talk this through. So Francine, Heather, Leanne, do you have an elevator pitch of sorts that you have used when you are talking to anybody in your network?
I'm retired and trying to figure out what I'm going to do next, Shira.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm taking time out.
Okay.
And I'm not sure what it is yet. So I'm taking time out to kind of figure out what it is that I'm going to do. So I'm probably not a good candidate, but what about Michael? You said three of us, but Michael's here too.
Michael is here too. He's our host, but yes, we can make Michael part of this conversation as well.
Okay. I didn't realize he was host. Okay.
No, that's fine.
Yeah. So I'm not really a good candidate for it, but
that's fine.
But I'll think about it.
Okay. Be thinking as we're talking.
Okay.
And by the way, we do have, so the previous, we actually have on the BoomerWorks website, let me just show this to you. We have, okay, so if you go to boomerworks.org and you go to the training center and you go to marketing your business, there are two helpful videos. One is actually crafting your elevator pitch. So there you go. So that there's a whole, like a process to this, that we had a speaker talk about this. And then as I mentioned earlier, last month, Vern did how to transform that elevator pitch into a teaching story.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Right. So those are two videos that might be helpful for you as you're thinking about,
Thank you.
your pitch. Sure. Okay. Before that, of course, there's conceptualizing your business. So on that same training tab, we have intro to self-employment, and we have some videos there as well that you may want to look at. Okay.
Yeah, I've been a consultant, but I'm just kind of sussing it out.
Got it. That's great. That's a good place to be. All right, Leanne or Heather, do you have a pitch that you have used to describe what you do?
Yeah.
Okay. So think about two different kinds of people. One who gets what you do, really understands it, and one who doesn't very much. Can you share it in two kinds of versions? And it's okay. This is a safe space, so just kind of play with it a little bit. We're trying to do a little customization.
Okay, let me just go for it and see what happens. Because I've never thought, when I'm talking, it comes spontaneously, but when I'm thinking, no, I'm like, yeah, I'm a business communication coach who coaches early to mid-career individuals to be able to gain confidence, learn competence in communication, and to leverage that to create connections that can make such a difference in both personal and professional lives.
That's great.
In
That's great.
personal and professional life, whatever.
So
Yeah.
Is there a version of that for somebody who doesn't really understand the reason for that, would maybe, is there a slightly different way you can frame it for a different audience? Who would you say that pitch to normally?
Really been doing completely cold networking, but I met somebody, for example, the other day, and she saw me at Panera and she came over and said, "Hey, are you a writer?" So I went into it, and then she asked me questions, so I was able to elaborate a little bit more and engage her, asking what her interest was. And,
Got it. Okay.
and so on.
So that actually was more of a generic pitch for you. That was like kind of the stranger off the street. You were able to say that.
Yeah.
Right. Is there maybe a more customized version for somebody who really understands what you do that's a little more jargony, right? That somebody who does what you do or does something similar to what you do.
I'd probably approach it from, I'm a mindset and business communication coach, and I really feel strongly that communication skills are critical to any relationship, whether in the workplace, professionally, or personally, and that everything, the success of all of that comes from a person's mindset.
Okay.
Does that
Right.
sound any?
A little bit more, yeah. And so be thinking about who that person would be that would understand that even deeper, like think of it as a colleague. So not the person at Panera.
Mhm.
If you were talking to a trusted colleague who does something similar to what you do, is there a nomenclature that you can use that would show your expertise in that area?
Certain words that I'd use, or
Yeah. Certain, again, if there's any jargon, like a fellow communicator, is there neuropsychology words that you would use? That's what I'm talking about. Is there anything that you might say,
Mhm.
right, or neurolinguistics or whatever it is? I don't know what kind of communication style you use, but anything that's, again, not academic. I don't mean to go, like you're writing for a journal, but somebody who's a colleague where you get it. Like there's certain buzzwords that would be in that would explain what you do, that would show that you get it, right? That you're actually a trusted colleague,
Still using the whole mindset concept and
Mhm.
achieving transformation for the client by taking them through the steps of building their confidence, showing them the elements of communication, and helping them to leverage to make connections.
Okay, that's good.
Which
That's
stem
good.
from both things.
Yeah.
So the
And you
mindset, the transformation, the
Sure.
Yeah, Vern.
Yeah, maybe an example, Leanne, see if this works for you.
Mhm.
There's the growth mindset and the fixed mindset.
Mhm.
So people who are in HR and communications and career development, when they hear growth mindset and they hear fixed mindset, they know what those terms mean.
Mhm.
Where as somebody who would be outside of that probably doesn't have a clue as to growth mindset, fixed mindset.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Thank you, Vern.
Okay.
Are we all frozen?
No, you're fine.
Yeah.
You slowed down, but you're back.
Yeah. So did everybody hear that? Growth mindset, fixed mindset, right?
Yeah.
That would be something that people in learning, development, organizational development, HR, culture, they'd get those terms pretty quickly.
Exactly. Like in my world, if I were talking to a fellow recruiter, I could easily talk about hard skills and soft skills. I could talk about behavioral interviewing and situational interviewing. They would totally know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to share that kind of terminology with people who don't understand it. I have to be much more generic.
Yeah, so I had an example. Before we started this seminar, my wife's sister called and said her son wants to get out of the job that he's in, and he's got a degree in biology, and he wants to get into, something in labs and science, right? And so I was talking about the resume, and she said, well, he just sends his resume in. And I said, his resume is never going to get past the applicant tracking system. No, I'm sure.
ATS.
I'm sure Marie's sister didn't have a clue.
So
as
what
to
you're
I'm
talking about.
I did explain it to her. It was why just sending his resume in as it is now will not help him get a job. He'll be wasting his time.
Exactly.
Okay, I get it. So
Yep.
the soft skills definitely are things that are part of my write-up. I just didn't, think of it. So you have the technical know-how, but to be able to be more holistic, as people say, the soft skills really need to come into play. And that is the communication part. That is
Right.
the whole confidence thing, that is being able to find your voice and use it, using emotional intelligence and that sort of thing. So
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So now a trusted colleague would get that you get it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
It's also called Speak Your Geek.
Speak your geek.
Speak Your Geek. You're like, I get, yes.
I get it. Right.
The same words. Yeah.
Heather, I know that, thank you, Leanne. Heather, I was looking at the time. I know you had chatted that you had to leave. Do you have to leave right this second, or can we put you on the hot seat?
No. Well, thank you for Leanne for going first, because I got to write mine down. So,
Okay.
so I'm a workshop facilitator. So for my twin, I would tell them that I'm a workshop facilitator, and I focus on clients who already have business content developed. They just need somebody to step in and deliver it.
Great. Okay, pretty simple.
And
what would you do for somebody who didn't get it?
Yeah. For them, it would be, I teach workshops to help people learn how to communicate better. Great.
Simple, right? And of course, you'd want to have a little more fleshed out, right? You didn't have the first line, but that's exactly the point.
Well, usually I start off with, they say, what do you do? I say, have you ever taken a workshop at work? And they go, oh yeah. I just say, I'm the person who stands in front of that room.
Yes.
And they go,
oh,
got
it. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So you get it, right? It's just a matter of tailoring it to your audience.
No.
Period, end. And that person, you of course, you're not going to know if it's just an accident relationship. Exactly to your point, Heather. You get to know them, and you're like, well, have you ever taken a workshop? Now, of course, if you met that person in an HR conference, a training conference, you would never have to ask that, because the assumption is, right, that they already have the level of knowledge, which means you could automatically go into jargon, which you want to, because again, there's a credibility thing here, to make sure that they get that you get it. Good. Well, thank you, Heather. All right. So are there questions, other questions about anything that Vern and I have shared today that might be helpful to help you with your networking? Or Vern, is there anything else that you want to share?
Not that I can think of. Again, Sharon and I are here to help you, and certainly even after this, shoot us an email or get in touch with us if there's anything that pops into your head, tomorrow or the next day. So
yeah, we're here to help. And, again, feel free to reach out to us. For those of you who are watching this by video as well, on boomerworks.org. We have a join button in the upper right-hand corner. So feel free to join our community to keep abreast of our meetings. We meet twice a month now. We've actually been doing that for all of since COVID started, since last April. And if you want to see our meetup events, go to our meetup tab and go to upcoming events. And we have a growth group coming up in a couple of weeks. Growth group is just our peer networking group for anybody who's at any stage of the small business journey. Francine, from where you're at to Leanne to where you're at, whatever, feel free to come and ask questions. And we have a few people who can help you, suss out the answers. And then we have the rest of our programs coming up for the rest of the year on that page. Okay, so hope that is helpful tonight. And we look forward to seeing you again at a future meeting.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All
Have a blessed night.
all right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care.